Hello, good evening to everybody. Welcome to my series about all Chopin Mazurkas. Today, our episode is about, I would say, a very unknown Mazurka. Mazurka which is not very known. Mazurka which, although was published during Chopin's life, didn't get his opus number. This was Mazurka which was written and dedicated to Chopin's student, Émile Gaillard, a French banker who was Chopin's student, one of his best and favorite students, we would say. Well, I found it in some books that it was his favorite student, but in other books we can read that Adolf Gutmann, another student, was Chopin's favorite student. Therefore, we don't exactly know the truth. But for sure we know that Émile Gaillard was Chopin's friend, because the dedication says, "To my friend, Émile Gaillard." And Chopin hardly ever used the word friend, especially for French people, because of course he had a lot of Polish friends and this friendship was very close. But with French, he was always a little bit, well, maybe because of the language. Chopin never really, his French was not as good as Polish. His letters written in French had some mistakes, and we can feel that Chopin never can express exactly his soul, his insight in French, so he didn't feel so comfortable. And of course, when we have this close friendship, when we want to talk about everything, the best way is to do it in our mother tongue. But it's, well, not for everybody is the case. Of course, everybody is different, but that's how was Chopin. So this Mazurka, in my edition, this is the national Polish edition which I'm using. It has the opus number, opus 42A. As probably you know, opus 42 in Chopin's music is waltz. It's a waltz A flat major. But it was written more or less in the same time, in about 1840, 1841. So that's why probably they decided to put it as a opus number 42A. But this Mazurka is known from the title Émile Gaillard. Mazurka written for Émile Gaillard. It's not very well known, but I think it's very, very special, very beautiful, although it's quite simple. back to the beginning. And so on. And then we have the coda ending, and that's how it sounds. This mazurka, it's very obvious that from the very beginning we have the dialogue. I think it's very easy to hear. But the beginning of it is a little bit tricky. Chopin is, in a way, is making fun of us as listeners, or I would say the beginning is misleading. Why? Because listen to the first two notes which we have. So everybody is listening, oh, okay, this is the beginning, the melody, but no, this is not the melody. We think it's a melody, but then it's misleading, because left hand comes later with the melody. And right hand is only accompaniment. For those of you who knows Chopin music very well, I think when we listen to this, right hand only accompaniment with chords, left hand the melody, we immediately can pick another piece of Chopin which is very similar, and it's even written in the same key. Do you know what the piece is? And then right hand. What do you know what the piece is? I'm very curious. Probably some of you can name the piece. It's Chopin's favorite waltz. Waltz in A minor, when we have the melody. Right hand is answering. And so on. I love this piece. Anyway, we have left hand very set. Right hand is only accompanying. Then later, right hand is answering. Here in this mazurka, we have exactly the same thing. I think these pieces are very similar. So when we listen, and then, like in waltz, we have right hand. Right? It's very similar. So I think to make this dialogue easy to understand, to make this dialogue clear, I would say, I think it's good to use the imagination, like I always do. I, as a performer, I always like to do it, because I think then my music is more, well, I would say, transmits some message. There is some message inside. Of course, every piece of music has some message. We don't have to picture some stories, make up some stories, or imagine I don't know what. Sometimes music can be just music. And I perfectly agree to this theory. We can just sit and play like we feel. But at the same time, I think it's interesting to make up some kind of story, or maybe some picture, which helps me to get into the spirit, into the mood, and to help me to transmit something to my listeners. So here, of course, there is a dialogue, and the man starts to tell something, and it's very sad, nostalgic. So I think it's, of course, a conversation, because later we will have her answering. So you know what I found? You know what I made up? I made up a kind of, well, not story, but a kind of scene in my mind the letter correspondence by letters. So not really the physical dialogue. But the man who is sitting, he's very sad, maybe he's missing a woman who he loves, and he's writing to her, I miss you and I'm very sad. Of course, it can be much deeper. And then he gets the answer. And what do we have here? She is even more sad than him. Chromatic scale going down, so suffering, right? So she answers him, oh yes, I know what you feel, because I feel the same or even more. My heart is broken. It's almost as if somebody died. Terribly sad. And here he comes back to he answers her. But listen how interestingly it's written here. The melody in the left hand starts before the right hand finished the letter. Let's say the letter, or what she was saying. If it were written normally, so that if the left hand patiently waited for right hand to finish, that would sound like this. I play for you now like it would sound. We have so after the right hand finished, then the left hand comes, but the left hand comes in between, so it's interrupting in a way, interrupting right hand. So here my theory of letters collapse. It collapsed because it must be a physical conversation when one person doesn't let the other person finish her sentence, but continues his own story to tell. Well, but anyway, of course it's just a symbol, but from the compositional point of view, it's a very interesting way of written a phrase. Look. And we come to the C major, so the key is light, so we get a little bit more happiness. So maybe he writes now, oh, but it will be nice when we meet. We will be happy when we meet in the future. We have to meet again in the future. But here we have the deep tragedy. It's like a suffering again, because Chopin is using the diminished chord. We musicians say the diminished chord. The four notes, minor third, every note. It was used a lot by composers to express sadness and suffering. My favorite piece, which is using constantly these chords, is the famous Pathetic Symphony by Tchaikovsky. If you know second theme of this symphony, here. Again, it's such a beautiful piece, full of suffering and this theme, and we can feel it. And here Chopin is using the same kind of chord, which transmits us this feeling of suffering. And then her answer that, but in kind of C major, so she is a little bit more happy that they will meet soon. Then we come to the beginning. And now part B starts. And in part B we have the meeting. Can you hear it? They met. Finally they met. How, from the compositional point of view, how is it made? Well, a right hand plays in octaves. The same melody played by two fingers, number 1 and number 5. Octave is a symbol of agreement, I would say, or of somebody being together and agree, because this is the same melody, this is the same pitch, we can say, or only 1 octave lower, but we can hardly hear. It's the same melody, right? So here we have, they are together and they enjoy their company by, well, let's say dancing. Or maybe walking in the springtime. Then we come up, 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 up. It's very interesting that Chopin is using here octaves. He hardly ever used octaves, like plain octaves all the time. Also, he hardly ever used the same rhythm. It's like an obsession, all the time the same rhythm. Here we have ta-ta-tam, ta-ta-ta-ta-tam, all the time. Anyway, for the pianist, well, it's not easy, because we have to play octaves legato, so almost as if we play two hands. We have to play the same. Which is very difficult to do. It needs some work. But it's very interesting also. There is another piece by Chopin that he composed for his student. Well, he not really composed, but he dedicated to his student Adolf Gutmann, so another favorite student. And this piece also has octaves, but completely different octaves. Do you know what piece is this? Scherzo number 3, when we have octaves. Wow, completely different. Scary, virtuoso, powerful. And here we can immediately picture two students. Adolf Gutmann, probably with huge hand, great technique, virtuoso. Well, not banging piano, but probably very powerful. And probably he played etudes better than Chopin himself. Anyway, huge technique, wonderful student. Okay, so I dedicate to him the scherzo, because he will play the scherzo fantastically. Yes, yes. And Émile Gaillard, completely different personality, probably a poet, with beautiful sound, very sensitive. Maybe he played mazurkas very well. So Chopin thought, okay, I play mazurka, I write mazurka for him, and he will be the best performer of this mazurka ever. Who knows? But it's very interesting to guess, to have this guess, to get into this world, I think, of Chopin. I love doing this, as you already know. So here we have these octaves. And now I probably wonder how to play it. I mean, what to do with this if we have the same rhythm all the time. I can play for you my own ideas. I have dozens of them, because certainly we have to do some kind of ad libitum here to keep listener alert. So I give you some ideas. We can start slower and then go on faster. When the melody changes here, in the upper note, we can kind of wait a little bit to see. When we go up, we want to see, like in the mountains, right? So we go. And again, the beginning. Now we go up. The phrase ending, so we can slow down, and then again start slower, maybe. This is one way, but another way, you can just open your imagination and you can we can maybe make a mazurka, so we can wait before 3. Listen how it sounds. And also do something with the dynamic. And now the most beautiful moment in the mazurka. Listen. Oh my God, the most beautiful moment in the mazurka, and then I missed the note. You know, it happens sometimes. It happens sometimes. Hopefully not during the performance. But let me play it again, and this time correct note. I got so excited. I got too excited. This is a problem of sensitive people, you know, of sensitive pianists. You want to play something so beautiful. If you are a pianist yourself, you probably know what I mean. You want to play something that beautiful, and then suddenly the finger is not there. What to do? Well, but anyway, in this recording I can repeat. So I want to show you the most beautiful moment in this mazurka. Now maybe without talking in between. So Chopin is putting the phrase up and making these beautiful harmonies. Fantastic. It's like I think our heart opens, or we take the big deep breath. I think this is like a symbol of this moment, and it brings us back to the beginning. And then at the end of the piece, I think the ending of the piece is very touching, because suddenly she stays alone, and in a symbolic way, maybe it's, you know, he was a soldier, like in this Polish folk songs of soldiers. He was a soldier and he died in the war. So she stays alone, and she loved him so much, and now she feels like her life has no meaning. I think this must be played very sad. And what happens next? Have the trill, and in my imagination she falls asleep. Then in her dream he is coming, and they are together. So maybe that was her last dream in her life. Maybe she died during sleeping, dreaming of him. Or maybe he, like in the ballad, he came to her dream to take her from this world to another world where he already is. Very symbolic, very, very, I think, artistic, and I think that we artists are bound to create some kind of image to make this music a true piece of art, touching for our audiences. Well, that's my philosophy as an artist and my opinion. So this ending, I think, is very touching. Now I will play for you again the whole piece, and I like to play this as a kind of improvisation. I imagine all this story, but I also imagine Chopin himself sitting on the piano and just improvising for us. thanks for listening. I invite you to listen to other episodes and also next episodes. The next one already next week. Thank you very much and see you again. Bye bye.